Ukrainian radio. In this half-an-hour broadcast of Radio Ukraine International, you will hear a news bulletin, Ukrainian Perspective, a program of news reports and commentaries, and our regular feature, The Reading Lounge, presenting literary works by famous Ukrainian writers and poets.
First, the news, read by Tatiana Makatenko. The situation is deteriorating in eastern Ukraine, with shelling reported across the front line. According to the latest reports by the Ukrainian military on Thursday morning, Russian-backed fighters have adopted scorched earth tactics after Ukraine closed a frontier crossing checkpoint in Zaitsevo, a village north of Goryevka. According to the Anti-Terrorism Operation Press Center, more than 150 shells fell on Zaitsevo last night in what the military calls an attempt to erase the whole village from the face of earth. According to Colonel Alexander Motuzyanik, a military spokesman for the presidential administration, one Ukrainian soldier was wounded in action. International monitors confirm a sharp rise in truce violations in eastern Ukraine. According to Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, Alexander Hug, the mission is at the moment very much concerned about the developments over the past days. We see in particular on the Donetsk side of the security zone a rapid deterioration of the security situation with an incredible amount of ceasefire violations that we have registered. They reached over thousands in different places on different days. Over 90% of the incidents there occur in areas not controlled by the government. German Foreign Minister and OSCE Chairperson in office, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, on Thursday expressed deep concern following the recent increase in ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine and called upon all sides to fully comply with the ceasefire and to immediately end all fighting. Referring to reports from the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, which in recent days have noted a rapid deterioration in the situation, Steinmeier said, the implementation of the Minsk agreements is the only way forward, and to this end a sustainable ceasefire is imperative. The European Parliament in Strasbourg slammed human rights abuses in Crimea and reminded Russia that its occupying authorities bear full responsibility for the security of residents of the peninsula. The respective resolution was supported by 472 members of European Parliament present at the plenary session on February 4th. Members of European Parliament condemned the unprecedented levels of human rights abuses perpetrated against Crimean residents, most notably the Tatars and indigenous people of Crimea, and the severe restriction on the freedoms of expression, association, and peaceful assembly. The resolution also reiterates Parliament's condemnation of Russia's illegal annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko met with the G7 ambassadors on Thursday in order to discuss further reforms. The meeting came after Economy Minister Aivaras Abramovičius announced his resignation, citing corruption in the government circles. During the meeting with ambassadors of the G7 countries, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko, Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk, and Parliament Speaker Volodymyr Groysman have assured that they will make joint efforts to carry out reforms in the country. The President, the Prime Minister, and the Speaker have assured us that they will work together and unite efforts to hold the reform in the country, Japanese Ambassador to Ukraine Shigeki Sumi told reporters in Kyiv on Thursday after the diplomats' meeting with the country's leadership. Earlier, Western leaders have praised the reform efforts of the Ukrainian economy minister and called on Kyiv to keep pursuing the reforms he championed. That was the news. With me, Tatiana Makatenko. This This is Radio Ukraine International with Ukrainian Perspective, a program of news, reports and commentaries. I'm Tetiana Harbul and the studio producer is Lyudmila Sudakova. The situation in the east of Ukraine remains tense. The enemy resorts to banned by the Minsk agreements practice of using heavy weapons. Illegal armed groups of separatists have become active in the Luhansk area, and in the Donetsk direction shelling came throughout the front line. Over the last day, the enemy more than 50 times fired at the counter-terrorist operation positions, reported on Thursday counter-terrorist operation headquarters spokesman Andriy Zadubinny.
На Донецькому напрямку ворог з гранатометів та великокаліберних кулеметів обстрілював наше укріплення в Майорськ, Новгородськ, Луганськ.
In Donetsk direction, the enemy fired with grenades and heavy machine guns at our strongholds in Novgorod, Mayorsk, Avdiivka and mine Butivka. In other areas, pro-Russian proxies used mortars. In Mariupol direction, armed gangs shelled Ukrainian strongholds with 82mm and 120mm anti-aircraft installations, said Andriy Zadubinny. Heavy shelling in the Luhansk area of Ukrainian military relates to the fact that, according to the current intelligence data, few raiders from the Russian Federation came to the territory of the self-proclaimed LNR. Foreign and Ukrainian military pro-Russian forces demonstrated their military training to the Russians. According to the current information from the counter-terrorist operation headquarters, no soldiers were killed in the conflict zone in the Donbass over the past day, but 2 defenders were wounded. Andriy Zadubinny also added that retreating, the terrorists used the local population as a shield, in particular in the area of the Donetsk airport. To the surface, the terrorists conducted fire on high-rise residential buildings that have already resulted in deaths. The most difficult situation on the contact line remained in the village Zaitsevo in the Donetsk region. Because of constant shelling from the weapons by Zaitsevo agreements, the checkpoint on entry and exit Zaitsevo remains for the security of the Ukrainian military and civilians. On the 4th of February, terrorists fired more than 150 mines from the 120 and 82mm mortars prohibited by the Minsk agreement at the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the settlements Zaitsevo and Mayorsk. They also began to apply the tactics of scorched earth. You're tuned to Radio Ukraine International and waiting to live our program in perspective. President of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko said that the Minister of Economy, Aivaras Abramovičius, should remain as Minister of Economic Development and Trade. As previously reported on Wednesday, February the 3rd, Minister of Economy said he would resign. He explained such step in particular by attempts to block reforms in his ministry and lobbying candidates for the posts of heads of state enterprises on part of one of the pro-presidential faction leaders, Igor Kononenko, who rejected the accusations against himself. This statement caused an extremely wide resonance both in and outside the President of Economy speaker has indicated that Ukraine is in a serious political crisis. He said this on Thursday at a meeting of the parliament in Kyiv. According to the speaker, to overcome the crisis situation, it is necessary to renew the executive branch at the highest level. Volodymyr Groysman explains.
Перше, оновити коаліційну угоду і план дій. Друге, оновити уряд під план дій, але конкретний план дій.
First, we should update the coalition agreement. Second, put new people in the government who have a specific action plan and who can take responsibility for their actions if they are ready to work in the government, concluded Volodymyr Groysman. He also stressed that the crisis must be solved by political parties together with the president in order to stabilize the situation. to give people absolutely clear perspective of how the country will live tomorrow. Prime Minister Arsen Yatsenyuk described the situation as an attempt to discredit the government and some of its representatives. Currently, the National Anti-Corruption Office has opened criminal proceedings in connection with the statement of the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Aivaras Abramovičius. The press service of the Anti-Corruption Bureau said that Aivaras Abramovičius will soon be invited to the National Anti-Corruption Office for questioning as a witness to the facts that he reported at a news conference on February the 3rd, 2016, when substantiating his resignation. The president said the day before that the investigation should be conducted as quickly as possible. The sooner society will answer the questions, the better, said Petro Poroshenko. Abramovičius, in the interview to the Ukrainian newspaper WRMI, translated as New Times, said that stripping MP Igor Kononenko of the mandate would not solve the problems of the system, which he does not want to be part of. According to Abramovičius, Kononenko is just one of the actors of the system of corruption, because corruption persists not only in state-owned companies, but also in courts, prosecutor offices, and fiscal service. To change this corrupt system, it is important to assign to some key government positions responsible people who want to break it. While Ukrainian political establishment is seeking a way out of political crisis, international experts remind that the most important thing for Ukraine is not to deviate from the path of reforms. Official Washington believes that Aivaras Abramovičius, while in the office of the Minister of Economy of Ukraine, initiated a number of important economic reforms, and the United States would like to see these reforms to be continued for the better future of the country. You're listening to Ukrainian Perspective, a program of news, reports, and commentaries. Unprecedented level of human rights violations has been recorded in Russia-occupied Crimea. This is stated in the resolution approved on Thursday by the EU Parliament. The resolution has been adopted on the basis of data collected by the delegation of the Council of Europe that was in Crimea from the 25th to 31st of January. President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, approved the adoption of the resolution by the European Parliament. The resolution strongly condemns the unprecedented level of human rights violations committed against Crimean residents, first and foremost the Crimean Tatars, on the peninsula occupied by Russia. The European Parliament assured that the annexation of the Crimea led to the deterioration of the human rights situation. This particularly applies to the Crimean Tatars. This opinion was expressed by the European Commissioner for Regional Policy, Corina Kretz, at the plenary session of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. She reminded that the European Union does not recognize the annexation of Crimea, which seriously and negatively affected the situation with human rights.
The imposition of Russian laws, citizenship has created a situation of legal uncertainty and discrimination. The Crimean Tatar community and other residents supporting the territorial integrity of Ukraine are paying a particular high price for the views they express,
said the European Commissioner for Regional Policy, Corina Kretz. EU politician reminded that the European Union is concerned with the situation of Ukrainian political prisoners, namely film director Oleg Sentsov and civil rights activist Alexander Kolchenko. They have been illegally sentenced to 20 years in jail in Russia for allegedly planning terrorist attacks in the Russian-occupied Crimea. Their case, which the European Union is monitoring, violates international law and basic standards of justice. The EU continues to require of their immediate release and safe return to Ukraine, said Kretz. It also called for full and free access of international organizations in the field of human rights to the territory of Ukraine, including Crimea and Sevastopol.
This is
Hello and welcome to Reading Lounge. We continue reading the story on Sunday morning, She Gathered Herbs by Olga Kobylanska. Sometimes the wreath is held on the side of the stream from which the loved one will appear, but always the wreaths are summoned and lured by the nymphs using their power and strength out of gratitude that the young girls remember them on St. John's Eve, dress up in their honor, and with youthful charming songs revive them, who are bound by a magic spell to the waters. They reciprocate